What is really happening behind closed doors in London? Who is shaping Europe's future? And why are the United States ready to walk away if Kiev and Moscow don't accept their terms? These questions have become central following an intense wave of diplomatic talks in Britain, Paris, and Moscow, involving top representatives of President Donald Trump's new administration. It is no longer a question of who wins the war. The key issue now is who accepts the terms of peace while peace is still possible. London has become the epicenter of negotiations that could mark a turning point. The initiative comes from Washington. President Trump, having taken office in January, vowed to end the war in Ukraine within 24 hours. Since then, the American administration has acted decisively. Delegations from Ukraine, the United States, the United Kingdom, France, and Germany were invited to the London talks. But the meeting nearly fell apart. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff cancelled their attendance at the last moment, a sign of White House frustration with Kiev's stance. Their absence was symbolic, a message that Washington's patience is running thin. Nevertheless, talks continued at the representative level. Witkoff, a key figure in the U.S. peace initiative, has already met with Vladimir Putin 3 times. His mission is not diplomacy for diplomacy's sake, but concrete results. As he put it, it's time to stop the killing, make peace, and put America first. This formula now defines U.S. foreign policy. It's not just about ending the war. It's about redistributing responsibility. America no longer wants to be the global sponsor of a war that Europe supports, but cannot win. The terms discussed in London include a frontline freeze at roughly current positions, de facto recognition of Russian sovereignty over Crimea, Ukraine's withdrawal from NATO aspirations, and partial lifting of Western sanctions against Moscow. In return, Ukraine would receive international security guarantees, including US-brokered oversight of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant, financial aid for reconstruction, and a renewed prospect of EU integration. These are not ultimatums, but they are being treated as a last chance. During a visit to India, Vice President J.D. Vance put it bluntly: either Russia and Ukraine say yes, or the United States walks away. He also stated that both sides need to give up some of the territory they control. Vance called Ukraine's position ineffective and accused Zelensky of playing with cards he doesn't have. President Zelensky, for his part, rejected the idea of recognizing Crimea as Russian, calling it unconstitutional and saying, "There is nothing to talk about." This prompted a sharp reaction from Trump, who called Zelensky's behavior provocative and warned, he can have peace, or he can keep fighting for another 3 years and lose the whole country. The White House has since clarified the U.S. is not demanding Kiev formally recognize Crimea as Russian, but it is ready to do so itself within a final agreement. Europe finds itself in an awkward position. Paris, Berlin, and London express support for the U.S. initiative, but are reluctant to assume responsibility. At the same time, the EU cannot guarantee Kiev's military security without Washington. And if the US pulls out of the talks, Europe will have to choose: admit its promises were just words, or send troops to Ukraine. The EU does not have the resources. Former British Chief of Staff, General Lord Dannatt, noted that real deployment in Ukraine would require at least 40,000 British soldiers. And we simply don't have that many, he concluded. The entire architecture of European support for Ukraine is beginning to crack. Poland, the Baltic states, and parts of Scandinavia are calling for tougher sanctions and continued military aid. But Hungary, Slovakia, Bulgaria, and parts of Germany view Trump's plan as painful but realistic, especially given the ongoing energy and industrial crisis in Europe. It's worth noting that the US plan isn't fundamentally new. Many of its elements were discussed earlier in the war. Even Zelensky, early in the conflict, admitted that neutrality with guarantees might be preferable if NATO refused Ukraine. What Washington is now offering is simply the formalization of informal realities. Critics may say that recognizing Russia's territorial gains is capitulation, but practically speaking, Ukraine loses nothing. Its army cannot retake the occupied territories, NATO won't accept it, and the economy relies on Western aid. Rejecting Trump's plan effectively means continuing the war on Russia's terms, without US support. Steve Witkoff, though absent in London, confirmed he will meet with Putin again in Moscow next week. The discussion will focus on details. Washington wants to freeze the front lines, extract a commitment from Moscow to halt further demands, and define the framework of a peace agreement that could be sold to both the US Congress and Europe. What if the plan fails? Vance's words say it all. Then we just move on, meaning Ukraine will face Russia alone, and Europe will be forced to treat this conflict as its own, increasing the risk of direct confrontation. In that scenario, everyone loses. What's happening in London is not surrender, not betrayal, not collusion. It is the last attempt to resolve this war before it enters a new, even more devastating phase. If this chance is not taken now, all parties may soon have no chance at all.